Hello there, me? Well, I'm just, enjoying greatsword against Savage Omega, if you'll excuse me. Hello then, my fellow hunters, and today, my fellow wielders of the greatest of swords. It's no secret that we are eating good in Title Update 3. And between the new Bale Armor set bonus and the Shadowbringer Greatsword itself, we've got a lot of fun new little toys to play with. Sacrificing health for massive damage, I mean, don't mind if I do. The Greatsword way is to go through the monster, not around it, damn it. And we have the support to really play into that and, fire out purple ranged second hit counting energy waves with all of our charged attacks. Ha! Now, we don't just have a new best build for Greatsword in Title Update 3, we don't just have 2 or 3, we have 4 new equally viable, each better in different situation setups. But don't worry, I'll make it very simple to choose which one you would like. And I think more than anything, we actually have a technically, mathematically new best greatsword. That's right, better than perfect Artian. Oh yes! At least most of the time it is, not always. You're still going to be using Artian a lot, but at the same time you're also able to use Shadowbringer in a really meaningful way. I'll get into it. But more than anything, it's just so much fun. I honestly can't get over how purely entertaining it is to wield Greatsword in these sets against Omega. This is me hunting Savage Omega in the background. I am by no means fully learned on his fight yet, but I did get him first try with just myself and support hunters, so I'm pretty pleased with that, though I certainly want to speed up this time, but the raw damage output that we're seeing now is really quite something, and the actual hunt itself just actually feels great for the Greatsword moveset. It really isn't too hectic, although it seems it, but Omega by definition rewards really careful, precise positioning, which is what Greatsword is all about. You can find so many little nooks and crannies and safe openings to get some nice DPS woven in, and there's something just neuron activating about shoulder tackling the rocket fist and smashing it to pieces before we follow up with a true charge. In any case then, yeah, let's get into this because there's a lot to get into, starting with that aforementioned new Greatsword. True Shadowbringer then. Apart from being beautiful to look at on your back, it's also beautiful to look at on a spreadsheet. That was one of the least cool things I've ever said. The point is, statistically, this thing is pretty damn good. Now, I did an entire, 17-minute long video testing this weapon. It's a unique skill in Darkside versus your perfect Artian, so obviously I can't just, do that whole thing again here in the middle of a build guide, but I will link that down below if you want the proper in-depth lowdown on how this compares to the previous best Greatsword. So I did say previous there. Basically, the TLDR is when you compare them like this, with no build, with no decorations in them, well, your true Shadowbringer is about 1.5% better than your perfect Artian. However, when you compare them actually in a build, when you've got your critical boost slotted in, when you've got affinity and more raw from the armor, well then your perfect Artian actually pulls ahead again by 1.5%. But that's still not the whole story. There are builds, there are situations in which Shadowbringer is just better, and we will get into how and why, and it is part of what I truly do consider to be the new best offensively powerful greatsword set, which is super exciting. So Darkside itself then, the skill, It's really fairly simple. Whenever you do a level 2 or level 3 charge, you deal a little bit of self-damage to yourself in the form of red health, and you gain 20 raw. After 30 seconds, you lose that 20 raw, and you cannot gain it again for 15 seconds, but you still damage yourself during that cooldown, which basically translates to 66% of the time this is active, which then means 66% of your 20. Dark side basically translates to always have red health and gain 13 raw, which is a pretty damn good skill, and certainly worth the decoration slot loss. It also enables red health synergy of both resentment and latent power, which is actually significant, and it will get even more significant for a reason I'll talk about later on. For now, though, know that these two are both our kings of greatsword, and depending on the set you choose, you will be using one or the other, so it's really nice to get that little bit of variety. But also, who cares about maths when you're doing this?
Dear God, it's beautiful.
It's so cool. The other thing to mention then before we get into the sets proper is Bale. The 2 set of this is Dark Arts, and it simply says some greatsword level 3 charge slashes are strengthened. It's not the most, helpfully detailed thing, but this 2 set then is what causes those lovely extra purple lines of energy to get blasted out of your charge attacks. And it's just your kind of standard charged combo. It doesn't do it for your offset, for example. What these do initially then is give you some range. For example, I'm going to miss the target dummy with my main swing here, but the energy wave, that cheeky extra 100 damage, has no problem getting there. Obviously, it's still, a small portion of your overall DPS, but a little consolation prize if you otherwise would have missed isn't a bad thing. But of course, it also applies that extra damage even if you are point blank. For example, right there, I just hit for 600 and then got an extra 120 or so from Dark Arts. That's obviously a hefty increase. You see there that it only did 22. That's because it actually does respect hit zones. In fact, in a lot of ways, it does count as a hit. It will trigger burst. We have, again, an entire video dedicated to testing it up if you are interested in all the nitty-gritty, but the point is, it's a really powerful set bonus, and you can see that very easily just by swinging it. Again, I hit for 490 there and did like 130 from Dark Arts. That's like 25% extra damage, which is obviously ridiculous. If there was a 2-set bonus in the game that you equipped and it just read, do 25% more damage, well then everyone would be using it. Now of course it's not fair to just call it like a 25% increase. The actual amount of damage it does is reflective of your actual attack, so it can vary there too. It also isn't going to be coming out from every attack. If you just do the single hit of the combo to get to true charge, for example, like that, well, it's not like we fired 2 extra waves out. Only the true charge itself is getting it. And there it hit the bad hit zone, so it only added 30 damage to an 1100 true charge. You're also going to be offsetting a lot, which as we know, doesn't fire it. You're going to be wound popping, which doesn't fire it, etc, etc. That said, it cannot be denied that it is potent. And even if we were to massively lowball it, let's say that charged attacks that fire the wave only make up 50% of our damage, which is obviously less than the reality. Your charged hits are everything with Greatsword, but let's say they're 50% of our damage. Let's say that the waves only add 10% damage, i.e. if we hit for 100, they only add 10 on average, and so on. Even in that situation with really deliberately low numbers, this 2-set is still worth plus 5% damage, just overall, which is obviously really still great. So with that in mind, you can see why we kinda want to be using it. The issue though is it's on this Bale Armor, and this Bale Armor isn't that good, technically speaking, as the armor very much promotes resentment and latent power. Latent power is actually, you know, pretty damn solid, is found in nearly every weapon's true best set, but resentment kinda sucks if you don't have a reliable way to do red health. Now obviously you're immediately thinking, oh, dark side, a reliable way to do red health. And yes, but if you are using 2 bits of Bale Armor, even if you pick the most efficient ones, if you're not getting benefit from resentment, then no matter how good Dark Arts is, you can do better from 2 different pieces of better armor that just give you more skills to the set. And that's kind of the balance. The sort of TLDR to what I'm saying here is the best way to use Dark Arts for those extra waves of damage is with Shadowbringer, so we get to fully capitalize on the entire package of the armor. Now, I'm not complaining at that at all, because the 2 in concert both look and feel amazing and do ridiculous damage, as you'll see when we get to the builds. But it is something to consider. Putting on 2 pieces of Bale and then still using Artian is still really good, as you'll see, but it just doesn't quite reach the heights of incorporating Shadowbringer into it, which is obviously their intention when designing this greatsword and this armor set. So it's actually been fairly satisfyingly complex to sit down and math out and work out the ways for us to go when it comes to Title Update 3. So with that sort of pretext set up then, let's get into the actual sets. Starting with a reminder of our previous best set, so we know the comparison point. The classic 3 Arch-Tempered, 2 Ray, 1 Duna with the double Lagiacrus. These decorations in, we have good uptime on your max smite from the Constitution, and we have all the skills we really need with some bonus weakness exploit using that ideal talisman, but as we know, you don't need this ideal talisman. For all the talisman stuff in detail, you do want to check out the previous greatsword build guide for when the talismans got added. In any case, this was where it was at. A really solid package, and it came out to a tasty 501 EFR, breaking that 500 barrier for the first time for us. So 501, keep that in your head as I introduce to you, oh my god, you're not ready! The best greatsword build of Title Update 3. And yes, you are seeing 2-set Bale, and yes, you are seeing Dark Side with true Shadowbringer. And it's not just for the fun, although it is, mathematically, it's the way. At least, most of the time. In any case, then, this is what it's like at base. We still have that nice, solid double ray with Duna to get that 3-set Arch-Tempered for your Lord's Soul, and this already starts at a really nice 4 latent power. And latent power already had really solid uptime, especially now hunts are getting longer and longer with 9 stars, with Omega. It just makes latent power better and better now that we have to spend proper time killing things, and that uptime has only gone up thanks to Darkside injuring ourselves and triggering it ever easier. But that all said then, let's get this decorated up and see what we're working with. We essentially then fill out Agitator. We add counterstrike on top, sort maximum might out, and add a little bit of recovery speed as a very necessary counter to the self-damage from Darkside, but I'll go over that a little bit more in detail in a moment. Those couple resentments, that 1 weakness exploit, we got some stamina surge, still some constitution for maximum might uptime. It's just a really solid all-round package. Now then, the one thing to note about this set is the talisman. It requires a very different sort of talisman to most of our sets. In fact, it looks a little something like this. Now, the reason this is important is twofold. Without this talisman, we couldn't get level 3 focus. You see, on the weapon, we have the 1 focus to make it level 3 with the talisman, which lets us then get level 5 critical boost. which means we're not actually sacrificing any of the core weapon skills that Artian uses. We don't have to be on 3 critical boost, we can be on the full 5. Now obviously that means we're losing attack level 4 from the talisman, but gaining 2 critical boost is much better than having attack level 4. So this talisman here then lets us both get counterstrike level 3, because the talisman itself is just counterstrike level 3, 2 ranks plus the 2 slot, and then it adds that focus, while also giving us a little bit of extra utility in a 1 slot. So if you want to take maximum advantage of 2-set Bale to fire out those dark art waves, and use Shadowbringer with Darkside, you kind of need this sort of level of a talisman. Now, you can technically still play this without it. You can use just the bog standard 3 counterstrike talisman. You lose this 1 slot, which isn't the end of the world, and then you simply play either with 1 focus and leave it like this, or put 2 more ranks of focus in instead of 2 critical boost. It's obviously a loss, and it does make it just a little bit worse than an Artian setup we're about to talk about, but it's certainly viable, and look, again, it's just so cool to play this way. But as it currently stands then, if we math this out, it comes to a grand total, are you ready, of 492 EFR. Now, I hear you go, whoa, the previous, the title update 2 best set was 501, that's less. And yes, you are correct, it's a little bit less, and by a little bit, about 2% or so. However, the maths there doesn't include Bale 2 set. It doesn't include the extra damage coming from those purple blasts. So with the EFR being so close, adding that at minimum, as we discussed, at least 5% extra damage, and suddenly it blows past the previous set. For a more practical, eye-opening example then, let me just do the classic combo charge with the new lovely Bale and Shadowbringer set. So as you can see there, we did a cool 3,300 damage across 7 hits. If we swap back to the previous title update 2 build and do the same thing, you'll see quite the marked difference. So we are competing with 3,285, and then the reality is, wow, a near like 650 difference across the same combo. That is obviously gargantuan. Now, I am not one to rest on my laurels and stop there, because we still have 3 more sets to talk about that are all new and all also ridiculously potent. Starting with this. Again, a 2-set Bale with 2 Ray and a Oof Duna. These are the decorations. We put essentially your full counterstrike in here, as we do need it. It is way too valuable. We've got 1 challenger to take agitator up to level 3, couple of constitution just for maximum might uptime, and then we use that classic best greatsword talisman, your attack 3 plus a level 3 skill, in this case agitator, giving you attack 4 in total with the decoration. So what's going on here? Well, this is for all of you that want to use 2-set Bale so you can fire out those purple waves of extra damage, but you don't want to use Shadowbringer. You don't want to play with Darkside, you don't want to be constantly injuring yourself, and I totally get that. So this is 2-set Bale, but with your Artian like you're used to, with your classic sleep Artian 225 and your 5% affinity. So this way round then, the raw EFR of the set comes out to 490, which is obviously only 2 less than using the Shadowbringer. That's the difference of that 5% extra affinity and 5 raw that Artian has by default. So as you can see, it's not like the craziest difference in the world now, is it? So yeah, you can very much get away with this if you don't want to actually play with Shadowbringer, and this is still going to give you a huge bump in output compared to the previous best title update 2 set, and it's a lot safer, though I would argue a lot less fun too. Now, you don't have to be playing with your 2-set Bale. If you don't want to be relying on these extra purple waves, you just want nice, solid, mathematical strength. Well then, you sir, may I interest you in the following, our new best non-using what you could technically call a gimmick set. You've got triple ray Dow Gamma for that gut/Lord's Soul, that 5% base raw. We use ourselves Zoshia legs. There's actually a couple of legs that work, but Zoshia gives us the most extra skills. We get a recovery speed, we get an elemental absorption, we might as well, and then we use new Omega gloves. These things are incredible value, a 3-slot, a 2-slot, and an agitator, which basically translates to 2 agitator and then like a max might or a counterstrike, which is a really healthy piece of armor for greatsword. In fact, it's so good that it is worth breaking up the 2-set Lagiacrus for, because you end up with more damage overall doing this, which is kind of exciting. The same classic talisman, and you use this with your perfect Artian with the usual decorations. There is no gain to using this with your Shadowbringer, you will just do worse. So when we decorate this up then, it looks a little something like this. We get full agitator and then more importantly, full latent power. At 66% uptime, which is fair with Ray Dow, that's an extra 33% affinity, which is obviously ridiculously tasty. This then, once you math it all out, comes to an EFR of, are you ready for this, finally breaking that 501 from Title Update 2/The Talisman Update, 504. Oh yes, we're gaining 3 EFR, baby! Now, technically, you could argue that 3 EFR is worse than the little extra damage procs you get every 15-20 seconds or so from Lagiacrus 2-set, but I don't think it really is, because it's such a small amount of negligible damage, and when our multipliers are so high, our motion values on Greatsword, that 3 extra EFR over the course of a hunt is really, really nice. And in truth, with how long the hunts are, going up to latent power 5, you're likely actually getting more affinity than I'm even giving it credit for in this calculation, so the difference is more realistically even greater. The point is, this results in a really nice set, and all the rare armor makes it quite defensively sound too, and all in all, it's just a little bit of an upgrade over what we had before, and this is the way to go if you just want to keep playing standard, normal, greatsword without any of this new Final Fantasy shenanigans rolled in. So that then is your 3 main sets for solo hunting to choose between. Going full Bale and Shadowbringer to reach the peak of what we can do now at the cost of sacrificing health, a little bit more conservative version of the same thing using Artian, and then just some more classic greatswording with Artian and a more standard set. Before we move on to the 4th and final set of the day, I mean, just look at the actual raw damage output of this thing. It is so unbelievably satisfying to get those extra waves. Another 150 on top of our true charge, and that's really, really nice. But it just feels so good, and the waves can crit as well, which makes all that extra affinity even more worthwhile. And as you can see, my health is just kind of slowly, well, going down. But of course, the set, as you saw, is very much in... God, it's just so cool! As you saw, is inbuilt with recovery speed level 3. That obviously helps a lot, but it's not kind of enough by itself. It will give you that quadruple. So what I would recommend then as a quick, big, single, most important tip if you're going to play the full Shadowbringer Bale option is to start bringing immunizers to all your hunts and always having one on. If I drink it then, and you get a good 3 minutes out of this, so it's not like you have to maintain it that much, and then start blasting off our damage, well, look how fast that red health actually heals. And you'll notice the good thing about Darkside is it eats your health when you let go of the attack, not when the attack hits, which means we will always be on red health for the damage, i.e. resentment will always be activated for the damage, and then we'll heal up the red health afterwards when we no longer need it. So that is very, very swish, and I'm so happy it works that way. So recovery up level 3, immunizer on hand, and we essentially get the best of both worlds using this set, and we just get to enjoy both the damage and the flashy effects that come with it. Finally then, it would be remiss for me to not talk the new best greatsword build if you're playing multiplayer, at least potentially, at least arguably. So Omega Resonance here is a 2-set bonus that gives you attack and then affinity alternating. It's fairly straightforward. You'll start the hunt and you'll have 90 seconds of either attack or affinity mode. Let's say it's affinity mode. You then gain 20% affinity when you're near your allies. In practice, this is easy to keep up, honestly 100% of the time, but maths wise I'll put it at 90% just to be safe. Then after 90 seconds you'll switch to attack mode where you'll gain 10 raw, which is obviously quite hefty if you're away from your allies. Much harder to do on greatsword, so this will only be there, I don't know, about 60% of the time conservatively. But that means that collectively it's a really powerful 2-set bonus. We have an entire video up on how exactly it works, but in essence, if you're hunting with either support hunting AI or other people, this is going to give you a really powerful boost to the point it's very much worth considering using over all of the other, let's call them solo hunting sets that we've talked about so far. And to do this then, it looks a little something like this. Omega Helmet and Omega Gloves give us the 2-set, along with your classic triple arch-tempered for guts to fill out the rest. The skills that you end up with are your full latent power, for agitator, your counterstrike, your max might. I've finished divine blessing, because why not, but you can use that one slot on whatever you like. One bonus weakness exploit, as you do, and then you are good to go. So if we kind of quickly math this out, it ends up at an incredibly respectable 507 EFR, which is obviously really, really high. Now, you can definitely argue, and I kind of would, that you're still going to get more damage out of the Bale 2 set if we allow it to be even that lowball 5% damage increase, so you're fine to just use that everywhere, but there is the chance, especially if you have even higher uptime than I've allowed for in the maths, and by the way, in the maths, I have halved each uptime again, so I can do both attack and affinity in the same calculation, as opposed to doing it twice, once for each, but in any case, if you get even better uptime than I've allowed for, then that gap might start to grow, so it's something to consider, and hey, you might just like running the Omega Resonance rings. So, there you are. And the last thing really to mention is that while all the sets I've shown you today are fairly even, and you can pretty much just choose whichever the one you think you'll have most fun with, we do want to look a little bit to the future and know that arch-tempered new Udra is coming. Which means that we'll gain access, presumably, to some really high-value resentment armor that also carries with it that arch-tempered set bonus. Which is entirely possible then we completely swing to the Shadowbringer plus Bale playstyle to just being the best full stop. If we can comfortably get 5 resentment on top of all our other skills with Lord Soul, oh, the potential! So yeah, watch this space. So there you have it, everybody. That is Title Update 3 a la Greatsword, and I just could not be more chuffed. We have so many fun new options, new toys to play with. I mean, blasting out extra damaging energy waves. It's not the most Monster Hunter-y thing, but while we can do it, I mean, why not take righteous advantage, you know? And the thing is, in Master Rank, presumably this stuff's gonna have to get an upgrade because it's still in the game. I doubt it will remain best then. They'll probably give it a tame one so other things can shine, but look, Wilds and its Master Expansion might be the Energy Blast Greatsword era, and I'm here for it. It's not something I'd want to be in Monster Hunter always, because it does feel a little bit weird, but for right now, hell yes. Oh my god. Let me know what you think. Let me know which set you are going to go for. You really can't go wrong with any of them. For now then, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe, hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.